Kry jy ook asseblief een, ja? Dat sê. Anders kan ek jou nie hoor nie.
Van my is vol water.
Dieselfde het my gebeur. Mens leer na die eerste keer om met hierdie goed te werk.
So maak hy lang.
Exactly. So, first of all, welcome to Stephan Gericke, the viewers and the listeners. Welcome to you as well. This is STORTKOP Confessions. It's a side project of singing in the shower concerts that I created last year, well, in May 2020. My name is Alreen Lotino, and I'm pretending to be an interviewer. And please go and read more about this project. There's serious meaning behind the symbolism of the bathroom. So I hope you're going to enjoy this conversation with us that Stephan and I will be having. Stephan, so welcome to you. I look forward to speaking to you. Sê ek so welkom, so welcome. Afrikaans wat eers skemer daar. But yeah, yes. Thank you so much for being part of this project.
Yeah, thank you, Alreen. Yeah, thank you for having me, and yes, a good day to all the viewers.
You're the first person who have the manners to at least greet the viewers. Almal is so, ek wil net praat, jy weet. Okay, so Stephan, first question that I have is, please tell everybody who's listening and watching this about your career, where you started, just like an overview of everything. I want them to kind of get an idea of what it takes to create and maintain the career that you've built up for yourself. So if you can define the different roles that you have and the skills that you have developed and built up through the years, if you can give us an overview of that.
Okay, yes, I'm not always fond of talking about myself, but I'll try and keep it in a nutshell. So I've always been a very diverse musician. I studied music at the University of Pretoria, and piano was my first instrument. And my second instruments were violin and singing. So mostly classical, even though today I consider myself to be quite eclectic in the different genres of music that I delve into. But then after my studies specializing in piano performance, I decided for my postgraduate to go into music and the brain research. So I ended up studying like music cognition and perception. Basically, what happens in the brain if you play music, listen to music, or just sight read music, and all the functions that are needed to do that type of thing. So I went to do a second master's at the University of Cambridge at the Centre for Music and Science. And after I completed the MPhil there, I actually ended up working for a non-profit organization that had nothing to do with music for a while. I was headhunted for the job to take over as director for the South African branch. It is an international organization. And yes, from there on, I was just called back into a career of music, if you can put it like that. I was offered my first choir and decided, weighing the pros and cons, decided to start focusing on conducting, because as a conductor, all my diverse music skills from piano and violin and singing and accompanying and composing were all needed to be a good conductor, including the work that I did as for leadership development as part of the non-profit organization are also the type of skills that you need in order to be a conductor. So I started growing as a conductor, taking on more choirs. So predominantly at the moment, I'm mostly a choir conductor. They pay the bills, and I absolutely love it. I love working with the kids. I used to joke to say that my youngest singer was about 6 years old or 5 years old, and my oldest singer was, I don't know, 76, maybe 86. I'm not allowed to ask. But yes. So from there, I'm at quite a few schools where I am conducting the choirs at the moment. And I've also got the Jacaranda Children's Choir and my own adult choir, which I started in 2019, which is called Unison Voices. And what I also love doing is conducting bigger works, orchestral works. So I had the opportunity to conduct, for example, in the past 2 years, Mozart's Flute, or the Magic Flute, Rigoletto from Verdi. We did the musicals Fiddler on the Roof, which I conducted, as well as My Fair Lady, and an operetta, Wiener Blut. And yeah, but then everything kind of came to a standstill when COVID happened. So in a nutshell, that's basically what I've been doing.
Stephan, like we know each other from working together at St. Albans College. Okay,
yes.
So I have to get personal now first.
Okay.
What I absolutely love about you, you are extremely knowledgeable and never mind talented and skilled. You are an absolute brilliant, and I don't use this word cheaply. You are a brilliant musician. People should see this for themselves.
Well, coming from you, that's a big compliment. So thank you very much.
Yeah, this is rarig, awesome. So, but dankie. So your skill, your work ethic, that's amazing. To have been able to have done what you did, that is awesome. I looked at your biography, and the first thing I thought was, when people ask you, so what do you do for a living? And then you say, I'm a musician. And then they go, what is lekker? Yes, like it is lekker hoor. My maggies geniet dit,
Yeah.
Wow. But they don't realize what goes into it. But I guess it's like that with most industries. We don't understand how other things work, or other contexts of work.
And especially because music is so diverse. You can go study music, but none of us do the same thing. All of us end up in our own little niche. Even if you're a music teacher, that doesn't mean you can just teach music. You've got your own special field in music which you have to teach. So, and that's something that I've realized people don't always recognize is within the field of music, you've got all these specialities that different people take years and years and years to qualify themselves for. So if schools appoint a music teacher, it's not just one skill. They need a lot of skills. Yes.
Exactly. Teaching is almost like a separate profession. But anyway, I remember from working with you for almost 4 years, we became good friends and we support each other, everything that we do. And I've never really had this type of relationship with a classical musician. So like to get into your world is like, wow, I'll drink everything up because it's so different, but it's so interesting. And I love learning more about it. So thank you for that background. It's fantastic. All right, so now the big question.
Yes.
When the president announced this ugly lockdown and he said, listen, for the next 3 weeks, we're going to be locked down. Everything's going to be closed and everything's stopped. 2 questions. The first one is, what was your reaction to that? And as time went by and they extended the lockdowns, what type of plans did you start making to make sure that you still have an income, that you can still, survive? Yeah.
Yes. I'm going to answer mostly out of the perspective that I'm a choir conductor. So I work with schools and I work with the kids. And on the one hand, I'm in a very privileged position because even though I work for myself, I'm still employed by the school. So I've got a full-time income. And I must say I was very lucky. A lot of conductors lost their work. So yes, my first reaction, of course, it basically was fear. We didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know how it was going to affect our careers in the long run. And so many conductors, some of the schools just immediately sent them an impersonal email to say, oh, by the way, you've been working for us for 10 years, but cheers. Not see you later, not anything. So I was very lucky to be able to continue at my schools. But of course, I wanted to prove my worth. So I tried to make sure that even though we couldn't physically come together to actually practice in person, I went online. And as you know, so many people in so many industries had to find new and innovative ways just to stay relevant. So the first option, of course, is to go for Zoom rehearsals, or in Afrikaans is the Zoom oefening word 'n zoepening. Yes, that's a new one.
Brilliant.
But for music, it doesn't work. For one-on-one teaching, yes, because you can still teach one child at a time. But if you've got 80 singers in a choir and you're trying to do a Zoom rehearsal, and as we all know in South Africa, with the internet being not always being stable, or
Yep.
we've got families where you've got one laptop in a family of 6, and the parents are also working from
Yeah.
home. And you've
Yeah.
got, well,
Yeah.
kids that don't necessarily have access to data, let alone a laptop or a cell phone or things like that.
Exactly.
And so you can't also give the opportunity to those that have got all these fancy things at homes, and those that don't can't attend, and you can't disqualify them. But luckily, most of the schools came through very quickly to try and organize that they at least offered free Wi-Fi at school and while they were at school. So the kids could have access to resources online and download them onto their phones while they were at school, and then go and work with them at home. But I have to also say, the kids were struggling academically with all the classes, as all the parents know. Some parents who were working full-time also had to be home educators. And especially for the primary school kids, self-study isn't a skill that they've developed yet. So it makes it very difficult. So if you're going to prioritize, you're going to work on your maths class. You're not going to go and sing the extra choir rehearsals. So I spent hours and hours and hours creating all this content, which I'm not always convinced that the kids could access or that they used. But at the same time, I could prove to the schools that I was still working. I was still doing stuff. And the kids that did take part, the feedback was wonderful. The kids that really took part in the things that I did, they really enjoyed it. They really felt they grew from it. And the feedback that they came, it was a bit of a little bit of enjoyment and fun activities that they could do at home while stuck during lockdown.
Yeah.
So what I did is I gave them rehearsal tracks of all the music. And then I gave them a schedule set. Okay, this week, try and learn this 30 seconds of this song, or whatever the case might be. And of course, I also learned in the process about how to make it easier and more accessible for the kids. And what I also did, I made presentations. I made presentations about different singing techniques. How do the Eskimos sing throat singing and versus Mongolian throat singing, or just things like in jazz where you've got belting and scatting versus the more operatic style of singing, and where you've got a more pressed voice, Bulgarian singing or things. So I try to make it interesting because, and different things about music education and stuff. And then there would be small little kind of like assessments, online assessments, mostly so that I could see which of the kids were actually watching the videos and then completing the assessment. So that I had a bit of control to just see what was the level of engagement. And I also developed a sight reading course. So all my kids know the Kudai signs for solfege. And so I built a sight reading course based on that. So to help them to teach, to learn to read music. Yes, so that's something that we don't always get around to because all the major competitions are in May and the school choir year starts in February. So you've got 2 months to get competition ready. So all these extra skills and being a typical musician is often neglected. So I try to use lockdown to kind of develop that for the kids, to say, okay, let's see, we can't sing in our normal way. Let's see what other skills we can teach you. Because I've always believed as a conductor, I'm primarily an educator. And if a singer sings for me, or if I teach piano, if I teach singing, I don't want them to just learn the 3 songs that they need for the exam and that's it. I want to bestow upon them like proper skills as a musician so that they can keep on making music even if they don't have lessons.
That's it. That's exactly it, Stephan. I think it's a mindset that you have as a teacher to think wider and further than the minimal amount of work that you have to do, because it's a culture that you create. It's a way of living and thinking about music. And it's exactly that, to keep them motivated to carry on. It sounds like you really went for, an alternative way of teaching, and you did it quickly, and it sounds really amazing what you're telling me here, which is something that all of us had to do, is like to engage in this online platform and learn how to do things differently. Obviously, before you start rehearsal, you have a nice warm up and you have your rituals that you do, and then you start practicing and all that. I cannot imagine how to work with a group of people and get the same result. That must have been a challenge. But like you're saying, you
It
did
was
a different team.
it was actually also interesting to see what resources already exist. Even if it wasn't intentionally created for this purpose. Like you're talking about, we've got our little rituals of warming up and stuff. So I also sent through warm-up videos to try and say, okay, practice with this person and then it was nice, I think, for the kids not to just warm up with me, with the videos that I created, but also to say, look, here's an international person in America doing a warm-up video, sing with them. And
yes.
To create that sense of singing in a choir, I found warm-up videos where choirs were warming up, for example, on YouTube. So they could see what other children's choirs in America are doing for their warm-ups. And sometimes I would post things that are slightly maybe more challenging for the kids, but it's just to see, like, look, this is what other kids are doing. And this is how they're doing it. So hopefully that opened their eyes to and inspired them. But it did the same for me. As a classical musician, I'm usually used to, opening the piano lid and being able to play it, taking my violin out of the case and just playing. I'm not used to hooking up sound equipment and things like that. And through the years, of course, you learn the basics. But in lockdown, we had to suddenly, I had to become a sound engineer. I had to become a videographer. Skills that I've never did before, because I wanted to do virtual choir projects with all my choirs. One of the choirs did Lean on Me, another choir did Thank You for the Music, another choir just did the school song, which was a special request from the school. And so we ended up doing these type of projects as well. And one of the choirs actually took part on like a live stream virtual concert. And I needed to learn all the technical things. If the sound guy from the other side said, look, you have to plug in something, that's things I needed to figure out. I spent days trying to find software that would be accessible, that would be free, which the kids could easily use and which they could interact with the platform with, and figuring out how to get all the stuff on there, especially like the sight reading course. I wanted to make it interactive. So I want the kids to click on something and listen to something, or play around, and finding the right type of software and programming it to do what you needed it to do was a completely new challenge. And but I'm very glad I was able to learn all those skills.
Yeah, totally. Yes. And it happened so fast that it was like it's like a big tidal wave, and you have to swim, Mensa. You have to ride that wave, and you have to sink or swim. That's just how it is. But I mean, it's exciting, isn't it, that we've learned these new skills and platforms and tools. It's really, really, really cool. It almost makes me feel like more part of the whole world and not just South Africa. It's like we're more connected to everything else.
Because these virtual choir projects, there were a lot of projects that were open to the public, which I shared with my choir, these opportunities. And it was yesterday when I had a girl that came back to me and said, "Sir, aren't there any of those things happening anymore?" She really enjoyed it. And it was wonderful that this girl that's about, 14 years old, actually ended up taking part in mass choir videos in the UK, in America, and all these type of things. And she enjoyed it. She enjoyed the experience. She learned the music herself, and she went and she recorded herself, and she sang. And it's exactly, I saw so many music teachers that ended up getting international students. Because before, if you were living, in Groenkloof, then you had students from Groenkloof, and that was it. Now you can open yourself up, and that also means teaching ourselves the marketing skills. How do you get someone in Singapore to take a singing lesson with you online instead of, someone in Singapore? But
interesting.
It's
exciting.
It's all these projects really opened up a bit of a global landscape for all of us, and it was wonderful to see that the people could actually still make music together, even though they were stuck at home on their own.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think especially with performing, it is truly different. Like let's put it into the context of music education. In the past, kids had to do their recitals and they sing live and they get their marks. And now they take videos and send in their performances for competitions or exams or whatever it may be. So on the one hand, it's a lot easier because you don't have stage fright, and it's, you can edit the video, you can do it 100 times over and it will be great, right? But the thing is that takes away something from live performance, which is a communication form between yourself and an audience in real time, and your band members, and everything that happens in that space and energy. And that is something really specific and special to music performance. So I think, yes, it's a lot easier and convenient, but it takes away that authenticity that comes with live performance and that skill to get into that stage and know you're not feeling great, but you're going to do this and all that,
No, I absolutely agree. Look, as a, predominantly classically trained musician, I live and feed off of that energy that's created when musicians make music together live. I have to admit, I don't mean any offense, but I don't like a click track. A click track binds you
I know.
And especially with choir and things like that. If the acoustics in the venue are different, you want to play around with the sound. You want to take it slower, you want to take it faster. If I feel the choir's really on my hand that day, I can play around even more and make more music than you would usually do, and take more time and speed it up, or whatever the case might be, because then the music is alive. And I've always just felt there's more magic as soon as any musician plays live. I mean, just even a piano, the sound, it's never truly captured on a recording, especially not when the overtones are cut out, when it's reduced to fit a certain bandwidth, when you're putting it on, I don't know, certain platforms, which don't allow that richness of the sound to really come through. And something is lost in the process. And but at the same time, we try and focus on the positive. Otherwise we would go crazy. So we look at we look at the silver lining, and I've tried to see what the benefits are for the kids to actually be doing things online instead of a real performance, because we'll get to the real performance. We'll teach that to them, and because the self-confidence and the things that come with live performances is something that needs to be taught. But then one thing that was quite interesting, and because you're a singing teacher as well, I don't know if you've noticed this, but in my choirs, if I've got older members, they absolutely hate hearing themselves on recordings. And I know I also hate hearing myself. I always find, is that what I really sound like? But as musicians, you kind of record yourself, you listen to yourself, you improve, and that's part of the process. But a lot of the choir singers that are older are from a generation where some conductors even in the past had said, if you can't hear your neighbor, you're singing too loud. And that has changed, that mentality, through the years. But the singers that were brought up in that way, they've never heard their own voices, because they always just sing in the group, and they always make sure they blend, and they always make sure they fit in. So they don't know what they sound like on their own. And that was so interesting, because they didn't want to take part in any virtual recordings, because as soon as they recorded themselves, like, ooh, hang on. Sorry. As soon as they heard themselves singing, they were like so shocked by their level of singing, which they always thought was better. So they ended up not wanting to take part at all. Whereas the kids, let's just call it, maybe it's just because they're still naive and they don't know any better, but they would record it. If teacher says record, you record. And but I think it's wonderful, because it's actually advancing their solo singing technique, because they are hearing themselves. They're not just as part of the crowd, they have to take
Yeah.
ownership of what
Yeah.
they are doing. They have to take ownership of
Yeah.
their own vocal production. And
Yes.
and I think it might be a wonderful way if the kids record themselves, hear themselves, and listen to themselves, and then say, "Oh, but hang on, I can do that better." And it's that self-evaluation, which it's such an important skill.
I agree. It's almost like getting an awareness of your identity as a musician. This is my identity when I sing in a choir. When I'm in a choir, I have to blend, and we are one thing. We're one identity. When I'm a solo singer, I know exactly what to do technically to change the sound and interpretation to now be myself as an artist. And that's something that takes a lot of time. But I can totally imagine those people being devastated by hearing themselves. Yeah,
Because
I can dit nogal insien.
that has changed through the years. As a conductor, I believe that each singer needs to be developed as a soloist. It's my job as the conductor to make it sound good together. I need every singer to work on their own vocal technique and to improve their own voice, improve their own range, and obviously through warm-ups and through the things that we do. And but they should sing. They shouldn't hold back. And it's my job to then make it sound to blend, and there are different, of course, different ways of doing that and different techniques. So, yeah.
Yes, I think it's fascinating to conduct a choir because, like you're saying, the blending dynamics, vocal tone, and then if you have really, I can imagine if you have people who have a really distinct vocal tone and way of singing, it can be challenging to get that into the group, to have it blend.
Exactly. That's basically what my master's was about. It's exactly that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I ended up, conductors have got all these techniques to try and make choirs blend and sound like a unity. And, but it's verbal, it's verbal academia, if I can put it like that. There's not a lot of it's been written down. There's no real research that's been done about this. And it's such a magic thing that if you have two people with two distinct voices, if they stand next to each other, one onto this is my left, your right, and one on the other side, and they sing together, it will not work. They will not blend. Just swap them around and they will blend. Same two voices, but spatially, they just move positions and then suddenly it works.
Yes.
And the people use different terminologies, and that's when I decided, well, let's investigate this. What do the conductors use, and how do they describe it? Some people describe singers as instruments. They would say some people have fluty voices, others have got brassy voices, others have got reed voices. Whereas in the operatic genre, you've got more the differentiation between your lyrical voices and your like dramatic voices, for example. And
exactly.
So there's these different terminologies. Yeah. And then sometimes people get excluded because they believe they've got the wrong type of voice or the wrong type of color. So I ended up doing an experiment to try and actually approach this scientifically and to try and see if we can't get the statistics to speak for us. And why do certain techniques work and why do others not work? And it's a fascinating field how singers then change their voices based on what they hear. But as I said, I feel it's still important to then make sure that whatever you're doing is controlled and a healthy way of singing with good technique. Because I believe technique is control. If you can control your voice, you've got good technique, you can make your voice do what you need it to do. Because a Russian song needs to be approached in a different way than a German song, needs to be approached in a different way than to a pop song versus Chris Lamprecht, for example. So,
verseker. That's an excellent point. Stephan, I want to ask you about your performance career. I know you're passionate about conducting, and this is what you've been focusing on, choir conducting. But people often have this weird perception that people who teach can't really play, and then people who play can just go into teaching easily and that thing. But performance in the context of classical music, in every genre, it's different. In the classical realm, your platforms for performing are different to ours in the jazz realm, are different to those in the rock and the pop and the Afrikaans and whatever. It's all very, very different. So we can't generalize. We can't generalize at all. What I want to ask this: the performance side of mense die Vrydag het bietjie laat begin. Your performance career,
Yes.
it's integral to teaching. It's everything is integral. It's not, you can't separate the two. That's my opinion of it. Tell me a little bit about your performance career and how it has impacted on your teaching, and what value does it bring to your teaching, being able to play all those instruments and having studied it and everything.
Yes. I think I'm also a bit unique in that sense because I have had proper singing training, professional operatic training with one of the leading voice coaches in South Africa, and Wiener Blut. And so my knowledge of singing is based on what he taught me primarily. And so there are a lot of good conductors that might not necessarily be singers themselves, but they can teach singing.
I see.
But I find, especially with the younger kids, demonstration helps. So the kids copy and paste. If you can demonstrate it, they learn much quicker by just imitating than necessarily explaining. Whereas with older people, it's better to be able to give them a more understanding of what's happening in your anatomy and physically, and then that helps them to understand what the process entails. Yes, I'm a classically trained singer, and I've found that because I'm, trained vocally, that gives me the advantage of being able to understand the voice, understand different ages of the voice, what happens in the voice when you're at different ages, and then actually being able to relay those information to the kids. But also, because my first instrument was piano, I've got no problem taking a piece of music and playing it to the kids and accompanying myself, playing the accompaniment. So I know where other conductors, for example, have to have an accompanist on standby to help them and assist them. I cost the schools less because I'm a one-man job type of thing.
That's same. It was book for Stephan.
But yes, so it's a very interesting question, because in what I find is, especially when as a teacher, the realm in which we perform, which we teach the kids, is usually more based on the classical environment. The idea of going to a concert hall, even if it's the school hall, and the audience sits there very politely and listens to the performance, and everyone keeps quiet while the person is performing, and we teach the kids this is a sign of respect. When someone is performing on the stage, you keep quiet and you listen, and that's kind of like what the environment is that the kids get brought up in. It's very based on what I'm used to as a classical musician. You go with your instrument, and it sounds the way that you practiced it at home, because it's your instrument and you're playing the same thing. Whereas delving into more of a rock or a pop environment where you have to work with backtracks and the sound system is different, or the acoustics and the quality of the performance, or people might be, it's a bar and people are chatting, or people are not paying attention, and things like that. I find also, obviously we see this in the style of music, but we teach the kids about dynamics. You have to have variance. There has to be contrast. It has to be interesting, and you have to make it interesting by changing the music. You can't do the same thing twice or three times. But as soon as you get into another realm of performance, if you're a DJ, the idea is to keep that vibe going, and you're not going to go, you're going to play less with variation, because you need to kind of like get that, I don't know, the hypno state of the trance state of getting people to lose themselves in the music. So
that's it.
Yeah, I think my background is suited to what we're teaching, but it also means we need to be open to teach the kids other realms of music making in other forms.
Yeah, that's a difficult thing also. I think, well, the first point is to be able to diversify, and to be able to be a versatile musician already puts you in a better position. You're not the person who you can play one instrument well, but you can't use it in other contexts. You play various instruments and you can use it in other contexts, in many contexts. Composition, choir conducting, performing, and everything else. So that's really the way to go. It's important to have that, because that is a tool for teaching. The instrument is the tool for teaching. You need it. And like you're saying, they being open to teach other genres. But this now is a difficult one also, because to be able to teach, and I agree with that thing, you have to be able to demonstrate. And be a teacher, being a mentor, you'll have a subjective view about things, and a subjective teaching experience, and a subjective learning experience on a mentorship basis. So it's kind of difficult to, I imagine, creating a syllabus, like let's say I'm a jazz musician and I want to teach people classical singing. Where would I start how to learn how to do that? I'd be too scared, because being a jazz musician, I am a purist in that regard. Like, there's a specific way of doing things, and with yourself as well. So I think there is a gap for that, to kind of cater for that middle ground somewhere. Because anyway, there's this, I don't know if you know what the caps look like for high school, okay?
Yeah.
There's more,
yes.
classical music, jazz, African music, that thing. But that's a different talk show.
Yes.
That's on a different
I must say, you're touching on a very important part, because I think things are changing in that regard. And I'm interested to see what effect COVID and the lockdown has had because of it. If I'm thinking, most of the way that we did things is because that's what was needed for the evaluation, if it's caps or if it's the competitions. If you're taking part in the big national competitions, the judges are of a certain age and of a certain meaning and a certain schooling, and they believe in things should be done a certain way. So the teachers end up teaching the kids things in a certain way, because that's how you get your marks when you compete in the competition. And but I'm seeing more and more that because the world has opened up, because of lockdown and things like that. Obviously, it's been happening before then, but I think it's kind of like grown existentially since lockdown occurred. That people are like thinking, but hang on, we can do things in a different way. Instead of there are choirs overseas. Instead of doing live performances, all their music is recorded, and they're basically only a online phenomenon. Because what they do online cannot be reproduced in real life, because everything is edited completely. And that's one thing I think people don't know. If they listen to these virtual choirs, even the South African recordings, that they think, oh, it's so beautiful, but that's not what the group sounds like in real life. It was manipulated, and the bass was boosted, or in the case like that. And it sounds beautiful, and it's lovely, and it's wonderful to listen to. But that's completely different to what's happening. But that's opening up a scope of saying things can be done in a different way, which means things can be taught in a different way. But we're still trying to balance all these influences, of course. And then, because at the end of the day, you have to get your child through an exam.
That's it. That's what it comes down to. Yeah, that's really what it comes down to. But this is now interesting. I think I should do a separate series, a series 2, about music education and the challenges in the music education world. I think that should be a series on its own. I'm actually going to do that. You will be my first guest again. But we won't be in the shower. We'll be somewhere else. Ek weet nie waar ons gaan wees nou, lekker nie, maar in 'n klaskamer iewers.
Ja. Jy kan
Die
langs die
hoofse kantoor.
jy's daarom naby genoeg aan die see. You can go and sit next to the ocean.
Ja, verseker.
Ja.
But yeah, Stephan, yeah, it's lovely speaking to you. It's always enjoyable for me to speak with you about music education and singing and all that stuff. We're both passionate about it, so yeah. Yeah, so we've pointed out a new way of doing things and learning new skills, using new tools during the lockdown, and carrying on, being open to change, to do things differently. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add at this point.
Dis nie corona nie. Excuse. I was wondering if I could keep it in until we were finished, but sorry, I just had a bit of a crap in the keel. But
Conform.
so yeah, what is a live podcast without a bit of a blooper? So
Absolutely.
yeah, but on that note, Agne, dankie vir jou. Thank you for taking this initiative. I must say, personally, as you asked about what was my reaction to COVID, and I kind of felt we were stuck on an island by ourselves. We were faced with all these challenges, and we had to make decisions that impacted all our students and all the activities and impacted ourselves. And I think subconsciously, all the uncertainty and the fear really had an impact on us, which we might not even be aware of. And
That's true.
We felt isolated, literally and figuratively, because I'm in Pretoria, which is a mecca for choir singing, a mecca in the world for choir singing. And we've got so many choirs, and I had to make these decisions about my choirs and what to do and how to survive and how to try and keep the choir culture alive at the schools. And at the same time, I didn't know what my neighbors were doing. I didn't know what other conductors were doing and what the other schools are, because then you find out the regulations and the law says no choir rehearsals, it's absolutely forbidden. And then you find out other choirs are practicing. And how they were doing it.
Double standards.
Yes. And so something like this podcast interaction at least gives us a bridge to kind of like close these gaps, to find out you're not alone. We're not the only people struggling with these issues and these uncertainties and these big decisions, and finding out that you suddenly need skills to record people that you've never had before, never needed before, and figuring it out on your own, that you're not alone. There are other people out there with similar issues, similar fears, similar problems, and we're tackling it together. And I think part of it is that it gives us hope, knowing that we're not alone, and we can find a silver lining, and there are actually good things that can come out of this. So thank you so much for taking the initiative to have this type of podcast. I think it really means a lot.
It's just such a big pleasure. To be honest, it was so scary to ask. I was asking my friends, obviously, to join me and colleagues and everything. But there are a few people who I just took a chance. Like, this person is slightly famous. I don't know, but it's like it looks like everybody wants this. All of us want to speak. We want to speak about our feelings and our experiences, because we don't have any priority from the government. It's like they've forgotten about us, type of thing. So let's just don't do it ourselves.
And especially,
but thank you so much.
And especially with the kids, I just have to add that the choir means so much on an emotional level to so many of those kids. On a social level, just so many levels, that the kids have really missed choir, and the kids have really kind of like felt the emptiness of not having it in their lives. So it's this type of thing. Music helps people. I've got quite a few people, adults and things, that I know that they say music is the only therapy they have to deal with their depression and things like that. So, and one thing that we've realized, even if the world comes, basically to an end, music will always be there. It will always be able to make music. Even if we don't have the funding for it, we'll make a plan.
That's it.
Yeah.
That is exactly it. I've just was going to honor praat, but
Yeah.
those two themes. First one is the music goes on. I had this conversation on Monday with Tian and Eloise, and I said, it's like the Titanic. When the Titanic sank,
Yeah.
the bands continued playing. It's just like,
Yes.
you're going to carry on. You know, there's
Yes.
no point in stressing about it. You just carry on, do your thing, do your work. And the other thing is we're innovative. We have to innovate all the time. We have to, it's a way of growing and living now. So.
And we have to remember that the music that we make, even if we don't know that it's recognized or we don't receive the recognition, somewhere out there it is influencing someone and making a difference.
Yeah,
So,
somebody is appreciating it somewhere
yes.
in the world. You are so right. You are so right. Stephan, enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the
Thank
weekend.
you.
Lekker
You
werk.
too.
Ja, ons chat weer.
Reg. Baie
Ek gaan nou
dankie.
stop. Groot plesier.
Okay. And goodbye to the viewers, listeners, and everyone else. And have a wonderful weekend.
Okay, bye.
Bye.